Can you imagine the sheer chaos of getting a frantic, heart-stopping call that your wife you're grieving? Heartbroken wife is being dragged, yes, literally dragged, out of her own mother's wake by some overzealous HOA security goons. I thought I'd misheard the whole thing. Surely this couldn't be real, right? But then I screeched into the cul-de-sac, tires smoking, and there she was, Sarah, my beautiful, shattered wife, crumpled on the sidewalk like a discarded tissue, sobbing her soul out. Her funeral dress torn at the shoulder hung off her like a cruel joke, mascara streaking down her face in black rivers of despair. I bolted out of the car, adrenaline pumping, and demanded to know who in the hell gave the order for this madness. And then out struts this smug, high-heeled dictator of suburbia, Marlene Buck, pointing at herself with a grin that could curdle milk. "I did!" she chirped, like she'd just won some twisted HOA pageant. HOA rules are rules. Oh, lady, you have no idea who you just messed with. Shame she didn't recognize me, because I'm the state attorney general, and trust me, I've got a memory like a steel trap for garbage like this. Seriously, how often do you roll up to find your wife being manhandled off her own dead mother's lawn, like she's some random trespasser crashing the party? That's exactly where I found myself, though, on this dreary, cloud-choked Tuesday afternoon in Maple Ridge Estates. Can you picture it? The wake was supposed to be this quiet, tender goodbye, just family, a few close friends, some ham sandwiches on a folding table, and a handful of chairs under a little canopy in the front yard. Nothing wild, nothing loud, certainly not a rager to rattle the neighborhood. But apparently, to Marlene Buck, supreme overlord of the Homeowners Association, this simple act of mourning was a full-on assault on her precious rulebook. A Class C violation of Section 7B, unapproved gatherings. Can you believe that nonsense? My poor Sarah was still reeling, shell-shocked from losing her mom just days before. This wake was her anchor, her one fragile chance to say goodbye properly. How could anyone rip that away? And yet, there was Marlene, this manicured, clipboard-clutching tyrant turning a sacred moment into her personal power trip. Who does that? I dropped to my knees beside Sarah on that cold, unforgiving sidewalk, pulling her into my arms like I could shield her from the whole ugly world. I smoothed her tangled hair, whispering whatever comfort I could muster, while she clung to me like I was her last lifeline, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. The raw humiliation of being hauled out of her childhood home, during her mother's funeral no less, was etched into every line of her face. My heart broke 1,000 times over just looking at her. Did she flinch? Nope. She jutted her chin out like she was posing for a portrait and declared, "I did. HOA rules are rules? Oh, honey, you just lit a match under the wrong guy." Sarah and I climbed into the car, and I drove her home in silence, her quiet sobs filling the space between us. What could I even say? I just held her hand tight, made her a steaming mug of tea when we got back, and gently helped her out of that ruined dress. After she finally drifted off exhausted, utterly broken, I sat alone at the kitchen table in the dark, laptop glowing like a war drum. Work? Ha! This wasn't about work anymore. This was about war. She was this old school gem, loved her gardening, her potlucks, swapping gossip over the fence. Picture a lady with dirt under her nails and a twinkle in her eye. She settled in before the HOA turned into this aggressive, soul-crushing machine before. Marlene Buck crowned herself queen of the cul-de-sac. When Eloise got sick, Sarah and I practically lived at that house. We trimmed her hedges, drove her to doctor's appointments, played the good neighbor's heck. We even followed every ridiculous rule. But Marlene? Oh, she still found ways to be a thorn in our side. First, it was the garbage bins. Eloise left hers out 5 measly minutes past pickup. And bam, a fine. Then it was the mailbox color, not approved earth tones, they said. Can you imagine? We even got a written warning once for parking our car, wait for it, 2 inches over the driveway line. Marlene was the type to strut around with a tape measure and a smirk, thriving on petty nonsense like it was her lifeblood. And get this, she never once asked what I did for a living. She just saw my khakis, my button down, my clean sedan, and pegged me as some middle management drone pushing paper. She had no clue, no earthly idea that I'm the newly elected state attorney general. Surprise, Marlene. So this wasn't just personal anymore. Oh no, it was jurisdictional. I'm not one to flash my title like a badge, but when someone weaponizes bylaws to terrorize a grieving widow, we're not talking about a little spat over lawn clippings. We're talking about a neon red line being stomped all over, and I don't play nice when lines get crossed. That night, I dove in Maple Ridge HOA bylaws, city zoning codes, state laws on private property governance. My screen lit up with tabs, PDFs, neon highlighter streaks. Scribbled notes. Did I sleep? Barely. I wasn't after revenge, though. Oh no, I was hunting for cracks, those little legal chinks in their armor. HOAs love their precious rules, don't they? Until someone actually knows what they mean. And guess what? It didn't take long to strike gold. Their own bylaws said any fine over $500 needed a mediation process. Ha! Where was the mediation when they sixed a security guard on Sarah? Nowhere. Just a clipboard and her trauma unbelievable. Then I saw their enforcement clause was a total mess, no documented authority to physically remove anyone from private property, especially not family of the homeowner. And here's the kicker, brace yourself, the HOA's so-called security team, not licensed, no permits, no training, just a couple of retired mall cops in polos and earpieces playing tough guy. The second they laid hands on Sarah, they cracked the whole HOA wide open to civil liability jackpot. But did I charge in guns blazing? Nope. I didn't slap them with a cease and desist or flex my prosecutor muscles, not yet. Marlene thrives on drama. She lives for yelling matches at board meetings and those unhinged emails in bold red font. What she doesn't see coming is silence, cold strategy, a slow, bureaucratic chokehold. So I didn't storm the next HOA meeting. I let the Wake fiasco fade publicly, let her think she'd crushed us with her petty little power play. Meanwhile, I was moving chess pieces, quietly calling in favors, requesting HOA filings, cross-checking state compliance docs, even dropping an anonymous tip to the state's Property Association Oversight Office. By week's end, I had enough ammo to make the whole HOA sweat bullets, but I still held back. Why? Because I'm patient, that's why. Then Sarah got the letter O. You'll love this. A fine hand delivered by some board lackey for violating community policy and hosting an unregistered event. The amount, $1,250, due right now, no mediation, no appeal, just pure gall. Sarah broke down again when she saw it. Can you blame her? She started wondering if we'd messed up, if she'd somehow ruined everything. That was it, my breaking point. Marlene wanted to hide behind rules? Oh, I'd drown her in them. But before I could file my first motion, before I could nudge that first domino, I got a curveball. A knock at our door, late evening, sharp and urgent. I opened it, and who's standing there? Dennis, the HOA treasurer, one of Marlene's own, looking like he'd just seen a ghost. He glanced over his shoulder, voice dropping to a hush, and said, I think you should know. Something's not right with the books, and I think Marlene's covering it up. Holy smokes, was this for real? This wasn't just petty revenge anymore. This was about to blow up into something massive. Dennis didn't come in right away. He just hovered there, teetering on the doorstep like a guy debating whether to spill a secret or bolt. I raised an eyebrow, and waited years in my job taught me silence is a truth magnet. Sure enough, he peeked over his shoulder again and whispered, I think Marlene's been skimming money beautification funds. It's not adding up. Then he wrung his hands like he'd already said too much. I swung the door wide. "Come on in, buddy," and he shuffled inside, perching on the couch edge like it might bite him. Over the next 20 minutes, I got the scoop. Dennis, this quiet little mouse of a board member, had been sniffing out budget weirdness for months. $10. Flower beds that never bloomed, landscaping jobs that vanished, security upgrades that were just walkie-talkies, and a sign. Something stank and bad. But every time he piped up, Marlene slapped him down, told him it was above his pay grade, and threatened to boot him for undermining leadership. And get this, not only was she maybe stealing, but Dennis dropped another bomb. Marlene personally greenlit the physical removal at the wake. No board vote. No lawyer, just a scribbled note telling those fake guards to enforce compliance on the spot. What? She basically told a couple of washed-up cops they could rough people up over paperwork. Insanity. Can you believe how the game flipped upside down in an instant? I'd stormed into this mess thinking it'd be petty revenge, a quick legal jab, maybe a little public shaming to teach Marlene a lesson. But holy smokes now? Now we're talking financial irregularities that'd make your jaw drop, potential embezzlement that could land someone in cuffs, unauthorized enforcement antics, and a shaky-kneed board member spilling secrets in my living room like it's a late-night confessional. This wasn't just a crack in the dam anymore. Oh no, it was the whole thing splitting wide open, ready to crash down. I thanked Dennis for his gutsy move, promising him with a steady voice that no one would ever know. He'd squealed to me. The poor guy looked like he'd just dodged a bullet but was still terrified as he slipped out the door. His parting words stuck like glue. She thinks she's untouchable because no one's ever stood up to her. Just don't sleep on her. She fights dirty. Cute, right? Dirty's her game, but I fight with court subpoenas, buddy. The next morning, I hit the ground running. Oh, was I fired up. I started clawing through every document I could snag: public filings, tax records, community financial statements like some caffeine-crazed detective. I yanked records straight from the Secretary of State's office to double-check the HOA's incorporation status. Guess what? They're a non-profit entity. That means state oversight, mandatory reporting, and here's the kicker: accountability. They can't dodge. I uncovered missing quarterly reports. Where'd they go, huh? Expenditures that didn't line up with receipts, and contracts handed out like candy with no bids. Then I started dialing, not flashing my Attorney General badge yet. Oh no, just playing the concerned citizen card with colleagues who owed me big-time favors. I chatted up the office of the State HOA Oversight Board, dropped some sly hints, and got pointed to the juiciest forms. Then I hit up a pal at a local news station off the record, of course, and tossed out, "Hey, if a grieving widow got dragged from her mom's wake by an HOA, would that spice up a slow news day?" Her answer? "Send me the footage, and we're leading with it." Oh, you bet I did. See, Marlene had no clue, none, that one of the wake guests had caught the whole ugly scene on video from across the street. The quality wasn't Hollywood, but man, was it enough. You could see Sarah, all in black, being yanked away from her family like some criminal. Can you even imagine? You could hear her crying, her voice breaking, and that security clown barking, per Marlene's orders, "You're in violation." And there's Marlene herself, arms crossed, smirking like she's shooing a stray mutt off her pristine lawn. I didn't dare upload it myself, no way, too traceable. I funneled it through a burner account on a neighborhood group, slapped on a caption, "HOA removes grieving daughter from her own mother's funeral, Maple Ridge Estates." Within hours, it was everywhere. The comments exploded, people were livid. How is this even legal? This is sickening. These monsters have no soul. And then, oh, this was gold. Other Maple Ridge folks piled in with their own nightmare tales. Who knew the HOA had so many skeletons? That night, I plopped down next to Sarah on the couch, holding her hand tight while she scrolled through those comments. Her eyes were weary, shadowed from days of grief, but for the first time, can you believe it? There was this tiny spark of vindication flickering in them. She didn't say much, just rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you." Meanwhile, Marlene, she's strutting around, totally clueless, or at least betting the storm would fizzle out. Spoiler, it didn't. And me. Oh, I was just warming up. I fired off a formal complaint to the State Office of Nonprofit Regulation, BAM, attaching financial weirdness, screenshots, and chunks of the HOA's own bylaws like a legal grenade. Then I dropped an anonymous tip to the Department of Consumer Protection about those unlicensed security goons, seriously. Who lets that slide? A week later, I spotted the first crack, an emergency HOA meeting. Hush-hush behind closed doors. No minutes leaked, but a nosy neighbor overheard Marlene losing it, screaming about witch hunts and personal vendettas. Ha! She's half right, I'll give her that. Then plot twist. A letter lands in our mailbox. No return address, just oozing cowardice. Printed, unsigned, and practically trembling. It warned that continued antagonistic behavior toward the HOA may result in further sanctions. Sarah freaked, poor thing, but me? I laughed it off. I scanned that thing for clues, legal bluster, empty threats, all fear and no bite. They're rattled enough to try scaring me? Oh, I'm winning this war. So I cranked it up, filed a public records request with the HOA board, demanding financial transparency under state nonprofit laws. 30 days to cough it up, or I'd escalate it straight to the Attorney General's office, which, is me. How's that for a twist? Next, I roped in a local audit firm independent, no-nonsense pros, and asked them to eyeball the public records. Their prelim read, over $20,000 in shady expenses, landscaping billed twice, equipment bought from a ghost company, and get this, a consulting services payment tied to Marlene's cousin. It's all falling into place like a dream. But then surprise, a quiet neighbor, Mark, swings by with a mystery package left on his porch. No name. Inside, photocopies of internal HOA emails, juicy board member threads. One from Marlene herself snarls, he doesn't know who he's messing with. I don't care if his wife's mother died, rules are rules. If he keeps pushing, I'll find a way to evict them. Oh, Marlene, you glorious fool, did you just hand me the match to torch your empire? I'm not just building a case now, I'm gearing up to topple a kingdom. So, how big a blaze did I want to ignite? Oh, it started with a bang, a knock at Marlene's door. Not me, though nope. A courier from the office of the state attorney general, dropping off a formal notice of a pending legal investigation. That envelope? Thick, official, screaming authority before she even slid it open. Inside, a multi-page gut punch, an inquiry into Maple Ridge Estates HOA, flagging potential nonprofit statute violations, misuse of funds, disclosure law breaches, and those unlicensed security clowns. To anyone else, it's a death knell. To Marlene, betrayal from the universe itself. Who dare challenge the queen of the cul-de-sac, right? Word trickled back she'd scrambled an emergency meeting with her crumbling board. Dennis, my jittery treasurer pal, whispered that 2 members had bailed, one whining about stress, the other citing creative differences. Ha! They smelled the smoke and bolted. That left Marlene, Dennis, and some loyalists named Frank who once fined a guy for a yard gnome. Some dream team, huh? Meanwhile, the neighborhood's buzzing like a kicked hive. That Wake video hit local news, and the outrage won't quit. People who'd cowered under Marlene's reign are suddenly roaring. An anonymous Free Maple Ridge Facebook group pops up, spilling tea on fines for wind chimes, citations for faded shutters, and Marlene's epic holiday decor meltdowns. One lady got threatened over early Halloween decorations. Seriously? Another guy got nailed for a basketball hoop. Petty tyranny, every bit of it, and now it's unraveling in glorious public view. I stayed back, Letting the chaos simmer didn't need to play hero. I just wanted justice, chilled to perfection and served up right. But staying low-key got tough when the audit report landed. The numbers? Worse than I dreamed. Over $30,000 in sloppy spending, duplicate security charges, and checks to a landscaping outfit with no license, no staff, and jackpot. Owned by Marlene's nephew. This isn't mismanagement anymore, it's fraud, plain and simple. I had it all. Evidence, motive, witness, gold. I could have slammed the gavel myself, cracked the case wide open from my desk. But nah, I wanted it pristine, so I tossed it to Vera, a special counsel with zero smiles and a rap sheet of crushing corrupt counsels. She skimmed the files and grinned. Oh, we're gonna have fun with this. A week later, subpoenas flew, bank records got yanked, and Marlene's officially the star of a state-level probe. And still, she's not backing down. Can you believe the nerve? Can you even fathom the nerve of Marlene holding yet another HOA meeting? Like, what was she thinking? Picture this, just her, that loyal lapdog Frank, and two trembling homeowners who probably wandered in with innocent questions about trash pickup or something mundane. She strutted to the front of that sad little clubhouse like some embattled politician clinging to a sinking ship, launching into a speech so unhinged it could only be called delusional. Word got back that she ranted about radical forces, a personal vendetta, and get this, outsiders who don't get our community values. Oh, please. She didn't dare drop my name, not once. But those sneaky sideways glances from the residents, they screamed it all. By now, most folks had pieced it together. And guess what? I wasn't exactly playing hide and seek anymore. A few days later, I'm strolling with Sarah, my sweet, healing Sarah, to her mom's now empty house. And who do we pass on the sidewalk? Marlene herself, trying to act like we're invisible. Did she think she could just breeze by unnoticed? Her lips pinched tight, her eyes squinting like she'd tasted something sour. And oh, I saw it, the first real crack in that smug armor of hers. Not full-on fear yet, but panic? Oh, it was blooming, baby. And then bam, the cherry on top. I slammed a motion for a temporary injunction against the HOA right into the court's lap, screaming irreparable harm from mismanagement, intimidation, and power-tripping madness. With that juicy audit report in my pocket and the neighborhood cheering me on, the judge didn't hesitate, granted it on the spot. Effective immediately, all HOA nonsense fines, security, the works frozen solid. Marlene's petty little empire, shut down by the law. How's that for justice? The next day, oh, you'll love this. A no-frills flyer hit every doorstep and mailbox, black and white, straight to the point, announcing the HOA's under state investigation. No fines or fees till we say so. Can you imagine the relief washing over Maple Ridge? You could practically hear the whole place sigh in unison, like a weight lifted after years of suffocation. For the first time in forever, people could breathe without Marlene's clipboard hovering over their lives. But me? Oh, I wasn't done, not by a long shot. I'd bided my time, played it cool, and now it was time for the big reveal. Bring it on. Cue the next HOA board meeting, still technically allowed under the injunction, and holy cow, the community center was a madhouse. Packed to the rafters, folks lining the walls like it's a rock concert. And for the first time ever, I showed up. Did I leap up and start shouting? Nope. I slid into the back row, arms crossed, cool as a cucumber, just watching Marlene squirm as she tried to kick things off. Her voice shaking like a leaf as she stammered through her typed agenda, pathetic. When she finally croaked out, "Any public comments?" I stood up slow and steady. She clocked me. And oh man, for a split second, I swore she'd bolt. But I sauntered to the front, cool as ice, pulled a crisp packet from my folder, and slapped it on the podium like a mic drop. "My name's Nate Carter," I declared, Loud and clear, calm but commanding. Some of you know me. Some only know the hell my wife and I've been through these past weeks. But here's what most of you don't know. I'm the state attorney general, and I've had it up to here with this HOA breaking laws, bullying residents, and preying on grieving families. The room? Dead silent. Someone in the back gasped like they'd seen a ghost. Marlene's jaw flapped open, then snapped shut. She looked like her whole world was tumbling off a cliff, and I was loving every second. I kept going, laying it all out: the pilfered funds, the illegal fines, those unlicensed security clowns, the intimidation notes. Then I locked eyes with her dead on and let it rip. You had the gall to have my wife dragged from her mother's wake. You thought you could hide behind rules, behind your little process. But rules only shield those who follow them. Marlene, you didn't, and now you're going to pay the price. I dropped the packet on the table, boom, and strolled out, head high. Didn't need to linger, the seeds were sown, the justice train was rolling. Later that night, I'm pouring a well-earned scotch, watching Sarah finally crack a real smile, bless her heart. When Dennis pings me, Marlene's out. Step down, effective now, says she's moving. What? I peeked out the window toward the community center, its lights still faintly glowing in the distance. One more queen toppled from the board. Can you believe how fast peace swooped in once that tyrant hightailed it? One day, violation slips are fluttering through the cul-de-sac like some twisted fall foliage. And the next? Quiet, pure, beautiful quiet. No more dawn HOA patrols. No more email tirades about flags being 2 inches too wide. No more snarky notes plastered to mailboxes. Marlene vanished like she'd never existed, poof. Her house went dark, for sale signs sprouting up like weeds within days. Some whispered she'd fled to family out of state. Others swore she was shacked up with that nephew whose sham landscaping gig raked in HOA cash. Me? I didn't give a damn where she landed. Her reign over us was done. Finito caput. But the scars she left, oh, they weren't just about money or rules. They cut deep right into the heart. Sarah had been lost in a haze since her mom passed, and Marlene's cruelty turned that sorrow into a jagged wound. Yet now, can you feel the shift? Light was creeping back into her, slow and soft, like dawn sneaking through cracked blinds. Little glimmers of hope. She started fussing over her mom's garden again. Those roses practically sang under her touch. She flipped through old photo albums without crumbling into tears. She'd sit on the porch with coffee, unfazed by footsteps. Imagine that freedom. One afternoon, she turned to me, voice trembling with nerves, and asked, would it be okay to host a little gathering here? Just family, a few friends who missed saying goodbye? Of course. I shot back, heart swelling. She was still jittery, haunted by that first disaster, but this time, no HOA, no fines, no threats, just neighbors rolling up with casseroles, folding chairs, and hushed respect. I watched her glide through that crowd, soft hugs, shared tissues, even a gentle laugh when her cousin cracked a joke about her mom's Tupperware labeling obsession. Healing, real, raw, overdue healing. I stood off to the side, drink in hand, and bam, it hit me. The anger was gone. Weeks of fighting every motion I filed, every shady document I dug up, every trap I set fueled by white-hot rage and a thirst for justice. But seeing Sarah, finally at peace, flipped a switch. What was this all for? Not revenge, not some power trip, just love, pure and simple. Love for a woman who deserved to mourn without fear, choking her every breath. That night, after the last guest left, and we stacked the final coffee cups and cake plates, Sarah sank onto the couch beside me and said, I think Mom would have been proud of how you handled this. I grinned, brushed her cheek, and teased. She always liked me more than she let on. Her laugh, oh, that laugh, rang out, real and bright, filling the room like a burst of fresh air. The legal gears kept grinding quietly behind the scenes. Vera, that bulldog counsel, had it locked down. I stayed out of the glare as much as I could, didn't need the spotlight. This wasn't about me flexing, it was about accountability, plain and simple. Weeks after Marlene bolted, the court green-lit the HOA's dissolution. 78% of homeowners signed to torch it for good. In its place, a chill neighborhood committee, informal, voluntary, no fines, no power grabs, no bylaws fatter than a novel. Just folks agreeing to be decent. How refreshing is that? They asked if I'd join up. I laughed, waved them off. I'm good in the shadows, I said. Maybe toss some legal tips if you need them. But I'd rather mow my lawn without a ruler hovering over me. But wait, there's one last twist. I'm strolling past Marlene's old place one afternoon, coffee in hand, when I spot a moving truck, new owners, all smiles and easy vibes. I pop over, introduce myself, and they greet me like we're old pals. Glad it's quiet now. They chirp, and I nod, grinning. Before I bounce, I hand them a little gift bag I'd stashed for this exact moment inside. A state HOA compliance handbook, a neighborhood contact list, and a cheeky note, just in case. A wink, a nod, a tiny safeguard. That weekend, a new bulletin board pops up by the mailboxes. No fancy logo, no HOA seal, just a wooden frame and cork inviting notes. Sarah's the first to pin something up, a photo of her mom's garden, bursting with life again. Captioned, in memory of Eloise, "Thank you all for bringing peace back." Choked me up a bit. Don't tell anyone I said that. Soon it's covered kids hawking lemonade, lost cat flyers, a potluck invite. A neighborhood, not a dictatorship finally. Weeks later, some conference folks beg me to speak on private entity overreach. I dodge it, claiming family time. But I toss them a line. Rules should protect people, not punish them. That evening, Sarah and I are on the porch, her head on my shoulder, the air warm and still. I gaze down the street where it all kicked off, where my wife was humiliated in her darkest hour. Now, quiet, peaceful, free. Revenge? Gloating? Didn't need it. Closure? Oh, that's the real prize. Just as I turn to head in, a car crawls by, driver peering out like they're chasing a memory. Tinted window, but that silhouette tight bun, stiff shoulders rings a bell. Marlene, maybe? Doesn't matter. It rolls on, slow and deliberate, no stopping. I smirk if she ever dares slink back. She won't just face me, she'll face a whole neighborhood that's finally found its spine. Bring it on. I'm absolutely floored by how some people like Marlene can twist something as sacred as a neighborhood into a suffocating little fiefdom. It's outrageous, isn't it? Lifestyle should be about freedom, about living your truth, tending your garden, sipping coffee on the porch, grieving in peace, not dodging ridiculous fines for a mailbox shade or a 2-inch parking slip. I mean, who has the gall to police a grieving widow at her mother's wake over some dusty bylaw? It's not just cruel, it's a gut punch to everything human. Socially, this screams a desperate need for accountability, real accountability, not just lip service. I'm thrilled Nate wielded his role as Attorney General not for ego, but to dismantle that toxic HOA beast. Communities should lift each other up casseroles and quiet respect, not intimidation and embezzlement. Marlene's downfall? A glorious wake-up call. People deserve to breathe, to connect, without some clipboard tyrant sucking the joy out of every flower bed or holiday decoration. And Sarah's healing God, it hits me hard. That's what matters: love, resilience, reclaiming peace from the jaws of petty tyranny. This whole saga begs a blazing question: why do we let these mini dictators flourish? I'm passionate about stripping away overreach. Let's ditch the rule books thicker than a phone book and embrace decency instead. Neighborhoods should be sanctuaries, not battlegrounds. Nate and Sarah's fight wasn't just theirs. It's a rallying cry for anyone crushed by absurd control. I say, let's stand up, tear down the nonsense, and build something real together. Isn't that what living's all about?